their ministry might be well received.
Okay, we're about ready here.
All right, whenever you're ready.
Are we good, John? Got a green light. Yeah. Is it on now? Yeah. Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Brother Mike Stanford.
Well, first off, thank you very much for allowing me into your church to speak. Probably not going to be one staying behind there much. Hope that's okay, Bill. I'll stay close, I promise.
I got you.
You know, but I want to thank you all, and it's such an honor to come and share a testimony that God gave us many years ago. And so first off, thanks. I've told Bill I've got to share this many times, but probably not in our state or our home community. I've shared it in our state, but I've traveled many states, and I've sat and shared it with dinner and lunches with people that are going through some terrific times, and how we can rely on God and God's faith, and God is always there for us, and He carries us through things that we can never even understand. So, to start with, I thank my family for being here. This is the first time that they've ever been here when I've shared. And you know, the testimony is about Faith Elizabeth, our beautiful daughter. She was our second daughter, third child. So, got some dates here that I'll keep close as well. But it all started, I mean, we found out that we was going to have Faith in December of 1998. It's at Christmas, and Leah wasn't feeling well, thought she had the flu. And I said, well, I don't know about that. And then she took the pregnancy test, and we're going to have another child. So, you know, that's great. It's wonderful. So at that time, we were very excited, and life was going well. I was working here in town at the time, you know, and some things occurred at that job, and I switched jobs, and had gave my notice. Probably around February 13th, I gave my notice I'd be leaving at the end of February, gave my 2 weeks notice and such, and be taking another position. I can tell you what we were eating on February 16th. We were eating pancakes for supper that night. I can remember that night pretty vividly. 2 kids were sitting up at the counter eating, and you know, I like my pancakes hot. I'm kind of weird, but eggs and pancakes I like hot. I do not like them cold. So Leah will tell you, in 30 years of marriage, certain things I don't eat cold. So I was fixing the pancakes and feeding it to them warm as well. And Leah gets up and goes to the restroom and comes back, and pretty terrified. And you know, she had started bleeding, and heavily. So we called grandparents right away. Hey, this is what we're doing. We've got something going on. Called Fairfield Hospital. They told us to come right in. We went right down. Dr. Scott met us in the emergency room and was with us through that evening. Finally couldn't figure anything out. Just said, best thing I can do is tell you guys to go home and put Leah on bed rest. We'll see how this goes. So that's the way it went. And unfortunately, the bleeding continued. And so she was on bed rest from February 16th till the day Faith was born, August 21st. So she was on bed rest the entire time. So that kind of gives you how our life was. We had two young children, Brett and Alyssa. Both are grown up now and live elsewhere. But so I got to become Mr. Mom, Mr. Dad, and change jobs at the same time. The doctors we went for weekly sonograms to try to figure out what's going on. They'd be checking the amniotic fluid. They was trying to find out what was causing this. Finally, Dr. Scott says, I don't know, guys, I'm at a loss. Would you guys like to see a specialist? And he said, I really think we need to call one in. This is going to be a very high-risk pregnancy if we ever make it through. And we said, sure. So April 15th of 1999, we drive over to Evansville, meet with a specialist that came out of Indianapolis to meet with us. He examines Leah. They do sonograms. They do everything they can do. He meets back with us and he tells us at that point in time that we should abort this pregnancy, that it's an extremely high-risk pregnancy. She has a subchorionic hemorrhage, and the veins are also exposed. And he says, guys, this is so serious. If you lived across from the hospital, you could not make it across before she hemorrhaged to death. And he said, and this child, even if this child survives with the amount of blood you're losing, she'll be a vegetable. And so we listened to what he said, and he did say the decision was ours. He was, so we left, drove back to Florida, talked, prayed, scared. I remember that day, it's the 15th, payday for the school district, right? Great day. So we pulled up to the district office. And I say this for no reason other than to let you understand where we were at and how things were going. And how God can work in every situation and never give up hope and become despaired, because God has us. I go in and to pick up her check. She had a lot of sick leave saved up, and so we were very blessed there. And a few years before, we had went from getting paid every 12 months to every 10 months. I like my money. I don't want anybody else to earn interest off my money. That's our money. So pay me in 10, I'm not going to do it over 12. I'm not making any money on that. So that was the theory there, and we'd be responsible and do ours. And the first time they sent a check back when we changed it to 10, we called them right away and said, there's something wrong. You've overpaid us. And they checked, and no, it's all right. And we said, we're not sure about that. The way we have it figured, the way you have it figured are two different things. The next month, we did the same thing. We said, there's something wrong here. We contacted them 3 times on it, and they said, no, you don't understand. Leah has moved up on her pay scale because of her education, plus her years of service. So we left it alone. So now fast forward three years. So April 15th, I go in there to pick up her paycheck. We just left Evansville, finding out that most likely she will hemorrhage to death and die, or if we continue with this child, the child will be a vegetable, and such. So I go in, and they said, Mike, we need to talk to you for just a minute. Okay, I'm thinking maybe something great's happening here. We go back into a separate office, and they say, we are so sorry. We made a mistake 3 years ago. We overpaid you guys. You owe us $7,200. And also, Leah has no more sick time. We've docked it all the way back, and we need you to go home and get a check for $830 some to keep the insurance active. And, okay, Lord, not sure about this, but didn't say anything to them other than, I'm sorry I can't pay you the $7,200 today, but I will go home and get a check because we got to keep the insurance active. And they were gracious. They worked with me. We repaid all the money. We've done payroll deduction for 2 years and paid it all back. But we then had to start paying for the insurance out of our own pocket. And by God's grace and glory, we were able to. We've been wise stewards of our money. So, I always encourage young people to be wise stewards of your money and such. So that was, and so that evening, I went out to the car and I didn't tell Leah, well, you were in there a long time. Everything okay? Yeah, everything's great, hon. I didn't need to put any undue stress on her. Took her home, put her to bed. That evening, I can remember going back there. I had the 2 little ones at that time, Brett and Alyssa, eating supper. And Leah was laying back in the bed in her bedroom. And I walked in and laid across the foot of the bed. I was looking up at her. And, we talked about the decision we had to make. And Leah was very solid in the decision. I'm going to continue to carry this child. And, this is it. I asked her at that time, I said, are you prepared to die? I mean, that's one of the hardest things to ask a spouse or a loved one. Are you okay with God? My heart, I thought she was, I knew, but I had to ask to make sure that she is all right with God. And she assured me she was. And she asked me, if something does happen, please take great care of Brett and Alyssa. And I assured her I would. So we continued through the pregnancy. We didn't seek to see any more specialists. We continued to pray. And we had a praying doctor that prayed with us each visit. And we thank God for everything that He had given us. I remember I came home in May. I worked at LB Ford at the time. I changed and I went to work for LB Ford, and I came home. I checked on her at lunch when I could and tried to get home in the evening and such. And we had many great friends that would bring her. That's how she got introduced to Rainbow Cokes. She had never had a Rainbow Coke, and we had a friend introduce her to a Rainbow Coke. But it was in May, and I remember I came home. It was a beautiful May day, sunny. Wonderful day, and she's laying on the couch, and she'll tell you I was very stern with making you stay on bed rest and making sure she was always resting. So I come in, and you could just see something different about her. And she said, God's assured me I'm going to be okay, that this is going to be okay. And she says, I can't even explain it to you. It was an overwhelming radiation and started in her belly and went through her feet and through her head. And she said, God has assured me that this is going to be okay. And, she had the faith. We had prayed many times, but finally we also prayed, God, your will be done. Not ours, but your will. Let us be open to whatever your will is, Lord, and let it be done. And that's hard for us to do, because we like to control instead of releasing it to God. Or it is for me and my family at times. We've had difficulties with that. So she continues to bleed, but it starts to become old blood. And so she stays on bed rest until the 21st. They induce her that day. Beautiful Saturday. I can remember leaving the kids with Grandma and Grandpa. We had made it. We had made it to the time to see this precious child We had no idea what we were going to face, but we were there. We go in, they induce her, and everything's going pretty well. The funny part was Harold and Ruth Ann, of course, they come and visit, and they go to eat at Pizza Hut real quick, and they come back, and here's a baby. And it's like, we weren't gone that long. God decided, like, you were gone, here's going to produce, and so we celebrated. Faith was a beautiful 8 pounds, largest baby we had. 8 pounds, 6 ounces. Beautiful, round little girl. We came home just so excited, so thrilled. I'm still wearing an LB for it. Leah takes Faith to the doctor for a 2-week checkup, and Dr. Jones tells Leah, I think you guys probably need to see a heart specialist. Said I didn't want to say anything. I heard it when she was born, but I was hoping it's just a chamber and a valve and kind of closed. But said you guys are going to need to see a heart specialist. So we set that up. We go over to Evansville to the heart specialist over there and start the visit. He does an echo, does full workup on her. And he comes into the room and he says, on a scale 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, this is a 9. He said, what we're going to want to do is to try to wait as long as we can. We want to wait until she's probably 4 or 5 years old or older to do open heart surgery. But this is going to require surgery to repair her. She had a very large hole in the upper chamber of her heart that we were aware of. So we continue to go to him, October, November, and then I just saw him. We'd just taken her in December over there the week before the Christmas concert. And it's funny how you remember stuff by events in your life and meals you eat or whatnot. But, so we're there at the Alyssa becomes ill, and she has an ear infection. And Leah says, hey, you get, she was always good. She took care of the kids very well, and the little ones. So she said, you make sure Brett gets to the Christmas concert. I will take Alyssa and Faith with me to the doctor to get Alyssa seen. So she takes off, heads to Fairfield, gets in there, and they're walking back, and she's carrying Faith, and little Liz is walking, and she passes Dr. Jones in the hallway, and Dr. Jones opens up another examining room and says, come in here real quick. And he says, lay Faith on the table. And Leah goes to tell him, it's not Faith that's sick, it's Alyssa. And he says, I'll get to her, but right now I need to look at Faith. And he looks at Faith, and he realizes that she's in heart failure and such. And so I can remember from there that they did take care of Alyssa as well, but wanted to make sure they took care of Alyssa, her Faith. Next day we went down. He wanted to see both of us. Leah said that Dr. Jones wants to see both of us. So took off work, went down to see him, and we're sitting there in the room, and he says, hey, Faith's in heart failure. We're going to have to get her somewhere and get her somewhere soon. Where do you want to go? Do you want to go to Springfield or St. Louis? And I looked at Dr. Jones, and I said, it's your child. Where are you going? This is your child. Where would you take her? And he looked at me and he said, Indianapolis or Louisville, Kentucky. Those are the best places, but they're not in your insurance coverage area. They're out of whatever, so out of network. And I looked at Dr. Jones and I said, make the appointment. See, we got one time to get this right, but I've got a lifetime to pay it off. So we got one time to do it right, and we have a lifetime to pay it off. Because that's how precious she was to me. So he makes the calls, we worked on everything, he gets us, he said, well, Indianapolis is where I'd strongly suggest, that's where we need to have it. I said, make the calls, get her in. Called, and of course it's kind of tough to get her in, but Dr. Jones was able to make things happen. He'd done his residency up there, knew some people up there still, was able to really help out. I remember we came home, we got our kids, grandparents, didn't know how long we were going to go up there, and that was December 15th of 99. So we take off, have no idea what we're going to do or anything else. L.B. Ford, very gracious. Larry Frost, as many of you know, had the twins, so he is always very kind to me and allowed me to leave whatever I need to do to take care of Faith and my family. So very grateful for that. So we go up there, we get in there very late, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, I don't know which one you'd call it, but we go through the emergency room. They finally get us into our room probably about 3 a.m., 4 a.m. that morning. By the time they've done all the checks, we lay down and we're sleeping in sleeper chairs, but both of us are sleeping in it because we have no other way to make things happen. So, so we're there. And I remember the doctor comes in, and they're very nice, and they're kind to us. And they start looking at some of this stuff. And later on that afternoon, they come in, and they kind of give us a prognosis of, hey, you know what? Yeah, we're going to be treating this, and we're going to be working with her and some other things. And we'll probably be looking at open heart surgery, 4, 5, 6 years old. We'll definitely have to do open heart surgery. So, okay. Next day comes, and they come in, and there's been more tests and had more people evaluate her. And when she's 3 or 4, we're probably going to do open heart surgery. And next day, 2 or 3. And you realize at that point, this is very serious. Next day, 1 or 2. Finally, on December 19th, they came in. And said, we want you guys to go home and have a real nice Christmas. I'll never forget those words. And have a real nice Christmas. And we'll see you back January 17th. We'll do surgery on the 18th. Now, as soon as we got there, they put an NG tube in Faith for feeding. And they said, we need you guys to feed her every 2 hours to get her strong enough for this surgery. And we'll do whatever we have to do. And I can remember we got in the van, we went home, and pretty scared. Next morning came, we of course had her bed in our room, had a rocking chair in there, fed her in our room. We took turns getting up throughout the night so one could have 4 hours sleep, so you could get some sleep before you had to be back up. So we did that. So Monday morning, I go into work. I decide, well, I take the kids to school. They were so glad. Harold and Ruth Ann came up and visited us that Sunday, not knowing that we were going to get to come home. And we did not know we were going to get to come home. And they brought the kids, and I can remember we all rode home our black Windstar van, and it's a blessing, all of us together. And so we, next morning, I take Alyssa out to her grandmother's, take Brett to school. And I show up at LB Ford, and they greet me at the door, outside. And I said, Mike, have you heard? Heard what? And they said, we didn't want to call you when you were up there. I said, what? I'm thinking Frank Bailey. I've known Frank Bailey for many years, worked at Big John's as a kid, traveled some with Martin and Bailey, and so I thought it's Frank Bailey who owned LB Ford. Maybe he'd passed away. That wasn't it. We're closing. Really? Someone have a job. Child's going to have open heart surgery on the 18th of January. I don't have a job. How am I going to provide for my family? I asked him, I said, is it okay if I go home and talk to my wife real quick? Of course, they're very gracious. Go home, talk to Leah, kind of tell her what's happened and occurred. And from there, go back to work. And this next part is about how we should treat others. Because we never know what somebody on the other side of the counter or the phone has went through or been told or heard. We do not know. I pick up the phone call. At that time, the parts manager had walked out, and the parts and service manager had walked out, so I'd become the parts service and doing some of the sales for LB Ford. So I pick up the phone, and on the other end, I just heard, what are we going to do? What are you going to do? And I noticed it. I said, I don't know. I can't believe it. I said, I come in, I've lost my job, and Faith's going to have open heart surgery on the 18th. And the phone gets really, really quiet. And I said, are you still there? Yeah. I said, what's wrong? And he says, oh, I'm so sorry. He starts apologizing to me, telling me how sorry he was. And I said, well, what were you talking about? He said, I was calling to complain that my window regulator for my car didn't come in. And what were you going to do to fix it? To see, you just put life in perspective. That window regulator, compared to what you're going through today, not a big deal. Ketchup, mustard, or pickle on a hamburger that you wanted plain, and you don't know what the other person on the other side's going through, not a big deal. So it's about keeping life in perspective and what it is, and how God calls us to treat others. So we'll move forward, and I'm sorry if I'm running long. I'll try to. So that night, and I remember I went home, and I went to bed at 10, so I could get up and do the 2 o'clock, so Leah could do the 4 o'clock. And I got up at 2 to feed Faith, went, got everything warmed up, put it in the bottle, the tube was in, made sure placement was right. And my Bible's sitting there as well. And I said, God, I don't know if any of you have ever had this conversation, but God, I have tried. I've tried to do what you want me to do. I really just don't understand. I go to church, I do this, I do all these things. And I said, you're going to have to show me something tonight when I open up my Bible. And you're going to have to direct my eyes to the passage you want me to read. Because I don't know what else to hold on to at this point in time. The passage I open to is in Jeremiah 17. But blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. He will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit.
Amen.
God